Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is watching a soccer match they have no personal connection to. They have never met the players. They will never visit the country. And yet, their hands are shaking. That is not passion. That is engineering. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is the most watched sporting event in human history, expected to draw over 5 billion viewers across 104 matches in 3 countries. 5 billion. That is more than half the living humans on Earth, tuned into the same manufactured spectacle at the same manufactured time. And not one of them feels like they were tricked into caring. That is the trick. What FIFA has built is not a tournament. It is a psychological infrastructure so sophisticated it operates below the level of conscious awareness, activating circuits in your brain that predate language, cities, and money by hundreds of thousands of years. You think you chose to care about this? You did not. Your nervous system was hijacked, and it happened so smoothly you applauded while it was happening. Here is how they did it. Every 4 years, the World Cup disappears. That is not accidental. Sports psychologists have a term for this phenomenon: artificial scarcity, and it is one of the oldest behavioral levers ever studied. In 1975, researcher Stephen Wurtzel published a now-famous cookie jar experiment at the University of North Carolina. 2 groups of participants were given chocolate chip cookies to rate. One group had a jar full of cookies, the other had a jar with only 2. The cookies were identical, but the group with fewer cookies consistently rated them as tastier, more desirable, and more valuable. Nothing about the cookies changed. Everything about the perceived worth changed the moment supply was restricted. FIFA understood this long before Wurtzel put it in a paper. The World Cup happens once every 4 years. Not because the logistics demand it, not because the players need it, because 4 years is long enough for the memory of the last tournament to calcify into legend, for the players involved to age into mythology, for an entire generation of children to grow up knowing only one World Cup and treating it like a sacred once-in-a-lifetime event. By the time the next one arrives, the anticipation has been compressing for 1,460 days. Your brain does not experience that anticipation as waiting. It experiences it as hunger. And hungry brains make irrational decisions. But scarcity alone does not explain the full depth of what you feel. Something else is happening. Something older. In 1954, a social psychologist named Henri Tajfel escaped a Nazi prisoner of war camp, rebuilt his life in Britain, and spent the rest of it obsessed with one question: why do humans divide themselves into groups and then die for those groups? His answer, developed with colleague John Turner, became social identity theory, one of the most replicated findings in all of behavioral science. The core idea is devastatingly simple. Your sense of self is not just personal, it is collective. When you identify with a group, that group's victories become your victories. Its humiliations become your humiliations. The boundary between you and your tribe dissolves at the level of brain chemistry. Tajfel demonstrated this with what he called the minimal group paradigm. He assigned people to groups based on nothing, literally nothing, a coin flip. And within minutes, those people were favoring their own group over strangers and reporting higher personal self-esteem when their group succeeded. No shared history, no common goal, just a label. That was enough. FIFA gives you a label. Your country, your jersey, your colors. And your brain does the rest in milliseconds. When your national team scores a goal, a flood of dopamine hits your nucleus accumbens, the same reward center that fires during sex, eating, and addictive drug use. Researchers at the University of Cambridge found that male fans watching their team win experienced a 17% surge in testosterone, the same hormonal shift observed in actual victorious athletes. You are not watching. Your body believes you are competing. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between playing and witnessing, and FIFA has built an entire 4-week religion around that neurological glitch. But there is a third layer, and this one is the most invisible. FIFA does not just sell you a team, it sells you a story. And the human brain is not a logic machine. It is a narrative machine. Neuroscientist Uri Hasson at Princeton spent years mapping what happens inside human brains when people listen to stories together. What he found shook the field. When a speaker tells a compelling story, listeners' brains begin to synchronize with the speaker's brain. Not metaphorically, literally. The same neural regions activate in the same sequence. Hasson called this neural coupling, and what it means is that a shared story is not just communication. It is the merging of minds. Every World Cup creates a story, an underdog, a dynasty under threat, a 36-year-old playing in his final tournament, a goalkeeper from a nation of 4 million facing a team worth 4 billion. These are not statistics. They are ancient archetypes. The hero's journey, the fall from grace, the last stand, loaded into a sports broadcast and detonated in 5 billion synchronized nervous systems at once. You cry at a World Cup goal not because you care about a ball crossing a line. You cry because the story made your brain fuse with the story. Because for 3 seconds, you were not you. You were the player. You were the nation. You were every version of yourself that ever wanted something badly and did not know if it would come. FIFA knows this. The broadcast partners know this. The sponsorship infrastructure, worth approximately $7 billion per tournament cycle, knows this. Every camera angle is chosen to maximize the neural coupling effect. Close-ups of crying fans in the stands, slow-motion replays set to swelling orchestral music, sideline shots of coaches with their eyes closed and their fists clenched. These are not journalism. They are neurological amplifiers, engineered to push your brain deeper into the shared story. And then there are the stadiums. Architect and crowd behavior researcher Colin Allard has studied how built environments shape emotional states. Stadiums, he found, are some of the most psychologically manipulative structures humans have ever designed. Not by accident, but by long experimentation. The bowl-shaped trap sound. It reflects roars back onto the crowd, amplifying the sense of collective frenzy. The steep angle of the seating brings every spectator closer to the action than their physical distance would suggest, triggering a proximity response in the amygdala, the brain's threat and excitement processor, that keeps the nervous system in a state of sustained arousal for 90 minutes straight. When 80,000 people scream in unison, the sound pressure exceeds 130 decibels. That is the same intensity as a jet engine 30 meters away. At that level, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational, long-term thinking, begins to go quiet. The older emotional tribal regions take over. You stop calculating, you start feeling, and feeling, as every advertiser and every demagogue and every World Cup organizer in history has understood, is where loyalty is born. It is worth sitting with that for a moment. The most powerful sporting event on earth does not succeed despite being irrational. It succeeds because it is irrational. Because it bypasses the part of your brain that asks hard questions and reaches directly into the part that needs belonging, needs story, needs to be part of something larger than the small, quiet life you carry around every day. That is not a criticism, it is a diagnosis. Because here is the counterintuitive truth that researchers like Tajfel and Hasson and Warchel point toward. The need these mechanisms exploit is real. The hunger for collective identity, for shared narrative, for the transcendence of the individual self. These are not weaknesses. They are the deepest features of human consciousness. They are what built every civilization, every religion, every nation, every family that stayed together long enough to become something. FIFA did not invent these needs. It just built a very efficient machine for feeding them every 4 years. And in 2026, when the whistle blows and the crowd erupts and your hands start shaking over a game you were never supposed to care about, you will feel it again. That dissolving of the boundary between you and something enormous, that ancient electricity that tells you, you are not alone. You are not just one person. You are part of something that will outlast you. That feeling is not a trick, or rather, it is a trick that tells the truth. Tonight, somewhere in the world, someone is watching a soccer match they have no personal connection to. Their hands are shaking, and for one perfect, engineered, utterly human moment, they feel completely real.